All right. How far would you go for your kid's soccer dream?
Far enough to split the family, dad and son in one bedroom, mom and sister back home.
And then comes the part nobody prepares you for. The kid realizes the whole family moved around him.
This episode is what happens next. A dad learning the beautiful game through the eyes of his son and his passion for soccer. Sacrifice on the part of the entire family with incredible positivity to allow a kid to chase his dream.
And this is not a story about me. This is Chasing the Game, youth soccer in America.
Today's guest is Justin Phelps, a dad who didn't grow up in soccer. He learned it because his son loved it. And when the opportunity to step into a professional academy environment became real, he didn't just talk about it. He reorganized his life around it. We talk a lot on this podcast about the systems, MLS NEXT, pathways, environment, access. But this conversation is different. This is about what happens inside the house.
What does it mean when the dream gets big enough that it changes where you sleep, how you work, who you see every day? And what happens when your kid looks at you and understands that this whole thing, the move, is thanks and because of him?
Justin's story isn't about hype. It's not about chasing clout. It's about belief. It's really about backing your kid when he says, I want to train. I want to work towards this. And then realizing the emotional weight that comes with that kind of backing. He also went a step further. He built Soccer HQ in Clearwater, Florida, a training environment designed to give kids access to quality development without families having to break themselves to get it.
Yeah, this one is personal. We're 3 dads now, no posturing, just the real math families are doing every weekend. Let's get into it. Justin, welcome to Chasing the Game. For most parents, it's about buying better cleats. It's about getting a nicer uniform or something like that. But for you, you relocate a city, split the family, go to a 1-bedroom apartment, and then build a training facility.
Yeah, I'm still not quite sure how that happened, but
yeah well,
that's
we're about to find out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just take us a little bit back. Evan, your son, is a U13? 14.
He is U14, 2012.
14, right,
Yeah,
like Levy, U14.
Yeah.
He's at Tampa team, good MLS.
Yep, Tampa
Two,
Bay United,
right?
Tampa Bay United, MLS NEXT, whatever they call it now. I think
Okay.
homegrown.
Great.
Yeah.
Good team, strong team.
Yep.
Probably a good environment, unless you have something else to tell us.
No, great environment. Yeah, we loved it.
So what the beep is going on here? Why change everything?
Well, let's see. So I guess last year around this time, maybe January-ish, we had a scout from Orlando City reach out and said, hey, we'd like Evan to come out to they call it the Friday Night Futures. And it's just an opportunity for some of those players that they're kind of looking at to, for them to take a look at them at the Orlando City campus. So that's in Kissimmee, Florida, about 2 hours from our house. And they said, we want you to come out every Friday night for as long as we want you to be there. And they don't really tell you much, just come on out. And so we get out of school early on Friday and drive and battle Disney traffic and all that. And
Disney traffic.
yeah, man, we are like,
it's a thing.
I-4.
Is there like a thing? But there's a thing called Disney traffic?
I mean, yes. So yeah, we were coming out to the Friday night thing. I think it started, there was a couple hundred kids out there and it just kept whittling down. And then eventually it got to the point where they just said, hey, we want to do an official trial. And then we do that for a period of time. And then you don't really know what's going on while this is happening. Prior to that, I'd already decided to do the soccer business. So I'm managing a build out in St. Pete, Clearwater area, and we're doing this thing with Evan. And you don't know where you stand. The Tampa Bay United was trying to figure out, like, are you going to be on our team? They don't have information. And then they're trying to set their final rosters. And I think emotionally, I was at the point where I was just like, we're just going to stay with Tampa Bay. At this point, with the new business starting and everything, the logistics of it, these late night drive backs home from Orlando, we had sort of emotionally decided that we weren't going to do it. And I don't know if that was just a way of protecting ourselves, because if you get the no, it's super disappointing after been going out there for that long. And then Jose at the time, the head scout for Orlando City, called me up and he said, hey, we'd like Evan to join the team. And I was like, oh, now what do we do? This is no longer theory. This is real. So I told Jose, I said, listen, this is flattering. I said, but this is a bad year for us and blah, blah, blah. I said, I don't think we can do it. And I said, he says, well, he gave me some things to think about. And I said, can you just give me some time to kind of process this, talk to Evan, talk to my wife. And we did. And we decided that we can make it work. But we didn't know we were getting an apartment at that point. We thought we would carpool. We thought we could come out 3 days a week or whatever. We thought a lot of things that weren't true. So yeah.
Wow. Go back to, you mentioned launching a soccer business as well. What's your background, or do you not have a background in the game, and how did this all even come together?
No background. I played soccer as a kid. Yeah, I played soccer as a kid, little kid. But there was a guy named Michael Jordan who was around when I was a kid. So
heard of him.
Yeah. So basketball was the sport, right? I mean, we just didn't have these kind of soccer influences growing up in the 80s. And, we had major league indoor soccer in Dallas where I was living. And my favorite player was a guy named Tattoo. And
I remember his guys. Yeah.
Yeah. You remember that?
Yeah.
So we would
New York Arrows are in that league.
Oh yeah. So we would go to games as a kid, but that was it. I mean, I didn't have any exposure to soccer at any other level than that. So that's my background. Perfectly qualified to open an indoor soccer facility.
But you weren't leaving something that you felt was broken, right? You didn't have the soccer background. What made you think that you are creating an upgradable environment for your son?
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily what the goal was. I think it started initially with just being at the soccer field with other dads and being frustrated because another practice got canceled because of lightning, or just kind of being out in the oppressive heat of Tampa, Florida in August or May or September or whenever. And just being like, man, wouldn't it be great if we had a place that the boys could train at like an indoor place? And just kind of dad talk at practice, and nothing ever came from that. And, I guess it was 2 summers ago, I'm trying to do the math on this, but we went up, one of the kids on Evan's team, his dad had a connection with Kevin and Quinn Sullivan's dad, Brendan Sullivan, up in Philadelphia. And the dad said, hey, do you think Evan would like to go up and train at Brendan Sullivan's facility? And I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. We're always just like, yes. We say yes first. So we went up there, didn't know what to expect. I think in my mind, I envisioned this big indoor training facility or whatever. And it was this kind of smaller space, but the training was fantastic. And I was like, man, something like this would be just perfectly fine if we had something. And then me and that other dad, we started talking about what something like this would look like. And we had a lot of conversations back and forth, conversations with my wife, and like, what could this look like? Could it actually be a business? I don't need just an indoor place for Evan to train. I'm not going to spend, that kind of money just to open a facility for him.
Only half that money.
And I said, it got me thinking, like, what are some other needs? Like, where are we kind of missing on this stuff, at least in our area? And it got me thinking about my daughter, and when she first got introduced to the game, and it was a bad experience for my daughter. I mean, she was probably 6 years old, 7 years old. And I remember her being in her first game after maybe one practice. And she just like this in the middle of the field with her arms crossed, and she was not going anywhere. And coaches were going, that way, run, score a goal. Parents are yelling, and there's all this chaos. And she was just like, I'm not doing it, And I thought, man, there's got to be a better way for kids to get introduced to soccer, right? Like, if we could just make it less pressure, more fun, more about like joy, and less about parents like we gotta win, for 6-year-old kids. It just seems silly to me.
I've actually never heard that in the sidelines in the New York.
Yeah, of course. This is foreign to me.
It's so strange. Everybody's very quiet and reserved and just lets the kids be.
Oh man,
I met my best friend
Myself
screaming on the sideline.
Yeah, let's
Who's
not
that?
act like I'm not acting like I'm above this. Okay, I'm very, very aware that I was part of this problem. I'm part of these lunatic parents, right? So
But now you're part of the solution. So that's the important thing.
well, I think that's what you do, right? You reflect and you identify like where are we missing things and where are we goofing this up? And yeah, so
what did I look like to you at Super Copa when you first met me?
We were the same. Were you?
That's
kidding
what
me?
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
You're all like high and mighty here. I remember you and I screaming hand in hand.
I'm not high and mighty. I'm just trying to. No. Super
You didn't
Copa,
run to the field like me, but otherwise it was all exactly the same.
I chased after you with the camera. I caught all the glory.
So good.
So how, should we talk about how we met or no?
No, we can definitely. It's funny because we had a note in the last episode where we opened it with saying that I traveled thousands of miles against all common sense to see Lavi play a game and a half, and we've kind of met in the same way. We both traveled a lot to meet in a tournament in Florida, Super Copa, and I think the boys were probably 11 years old, maybe. And Matt, I was telling Justin that with Lavi, with all the cumulative experiences he's had at soccer at a short time, which some of them have been, on paper pretty grand, he still talks about that particular tournament as being a highlight of something that he's just had such a good time in. And I think, Justin, if you recall, I say positive vibes was the understatement of the year for that. And I think that sold us as families on the game, because the highs for us as parents was probably just as high as the high for the kids. And there was no turning back from there, right?
Unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, when we had that opportunity, the kid from Tampa to do that NY Select thing at Super Copa, man, we were all in. And it was so much fun.
Basically, you're saying that if it wasn't for Coach Marcos and Coach Ali, a lot of this maybe wouldn't have happened.
Hey, man, it's amazing, these little domino effects in life. We go up to Red Bull, and I can't remember the reason why, but we were waiting after practice one of the days, and I started talking to some of the dads up there. And this guy, Lee, was like, hey, would you guys be interested in doing this tournament? And I was like, sure, why not? We were just along for the ride, and then I met this great guy.
He just met you. He just met you there on the sideline, and he saw Evan, right? He has such a good eye.
He was watching. He's watching.
Right, he's like, wait, who's that kid?
Let's call it what it is. Lee is a talent scout. He is
brilliant
for high level talent.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it was an awesome experience getting to know all you guys and playing in that tournament together. It was really cool.
I was at that point already considering myself a fantastic sideline coach, but you were just coming into the sport, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so he started playing when he was pretty young, whatever, like 5, 6 years old. But I found myself talking to guys like you, Laurent, from somewhere other than the US, right? And there's a lot of those where we are just people from all over. So that was another thing that I loved about soccer, was just how multicultural it was. We'd have a lot of Hispanic families and European families and folks from all over. And I have no problem sharing my ignorance and trying to understand the game better. Like I said, I played, but I had so much to learn. And I loved just those sideline conversations and really learning the game. But, I got Evan into soccer because basketball was my true love. And I remember, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I remember Googling when he was probably like 3 or 4 years old, like, how do you raise an NBA player? Shameful. And there was somebody who wrote a paper on this, right? And one of the things was have them play soccer and get them into martial arts at a young age, but don't let them touch a basketball until they're 10 or 11 years old. And I was like, oh. So I said, soccer, we're going to do soccer. I played soccer as a kid. Soccer is a lot of fun. So we got into soccer that way. But yeah, I mean, I learned the game along the way, and Evan just was really good at soccer. And I was like, oh wait, I think this is his sport. He really likes this. And then I just got all in with him. But then I realized he's going to have passion for the game like I have for basketball. And so then I had to really understand the game professionally and how all this works. Why there's professional leagues in all these countries, and what's this Champions League thing? And so we just really dove in.
I'm curious, Justin. So you let's go back to the transition from Tampa Bay now to Orlando City.
Yep.
So it sounds like you have it all figured out. Like you go grassroots, get him started. He loves it. It's passionate. He's playing at a high level at Tampa Bay United. He gets scouted. You go through that arduous process, a lot of unknown. Then boom, you're at Orlando City FC. What has the last year been like for your son, for your family, and just generally, like, where are you guys on this journey?
There's a lot of highs and lows. It started with him guest playing in a tournament this summer, and I was telling Laurent about this. It was in Kansas City, and I remember at that point we had just accepted the offer to come to Orlando City. So then this idea of, well, maybe we could get a little apartment over there, and so that happened. We got a 1-bedroom apartment. It's about 5 minutes from the training facility. There's other kids on the team that live here. And then we just figured out the logistics. Evan would do virtual school. And then my wife and I would make this work where we would sort of like, I'd come out on Mondays with Evan and he'd do his schooling. And then, so what were we doing? Thursdays, I was driving back. My wife and I were literally crossing each other on I-4. I was racing to pick my daughter up from school to go take her to horseback riding and all the stuff that she does. And then my wife was coming here and Evan was hanging out at the house or at the apartment for a couple hours in that time. And I don't know, it's funny how these crazy things just start to become normal. So that part is just like our life now. And we've been doing that since August. And then, the journey itself, being at Orlando City it's a different environment than when you're in the club environment for your local club. Just an unbelievable group of kids, talent off the charts, competitors, just a tremendous training environment, for Evan. But it hasn't come without its emotional highs and lows and just the challenges that you go through stepping into this environment.
I don't even know what to say to this, but there's so much. This is such a big life decision, right? How much of it was, I know it's really difficult to answer that.
Yeah.
How much of it was, you think, driven by what you saw in Evan, and how much of it was driven by what you thought could be?
It's a good question. And I think it's a question that all the parents have to ask themselves when they go through this, because we made some pretty strategic moves along the way. Evan started with his local club, 5-10 minutes from the house. And then after a couple of years, I didn't think that was the best setup for him. So we moved to another club, and then he was able to, it was a higher competition level. He was able to compete really well there. And then it was, now we have to go. I started to figure out how this whole infrastructure worked. And
oh, really?
Oh, I was, well, all right.
This is going to be,
let's not get carried away. Let's not get carried away.
This is going to be a longer pod than
I was going to say, wow.
No. I figured out that if you wanted to get to an academy, you probably needed to play for an MLS NEXT club. And so we went to some tryout, and he was trying out for the age group above where he was. And I told Evan, I said, just go have fun. Let's just see kind of where you stack up with these other kids in the area. Right. And I guess it went well. Afterwards, they were like, hey, would you be willing to And I was like, it's a 45-minute drive. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, Evan, what do you want? Yes, Dad, I want to play with those kids. Those are the best kids. Let's go, So then, and then for 3 years, we're driving 45 minutes one way to practice and I know for you guys, 45 minutes is probably nothing.
You saw how long it took to set up the phone for this conversation. Of course, 45 minutes is nothing.
So, but you start doing that, and then I guess you're getting more exposure at that point. That's how that happened.
Was there a point in the process where either Evan or you were thinking, there's another level here and we think he can play at that level?
I think he stood out as one of the top kids on his team. And when he played the academies, whether it was Orlando City or Inter Miami, I felt like, and he felt like he could play with those kids. It wasn't like, we had the experience with a couple of years or early on in that process of going to Tampa Bay United. His coach recommended that he do a little trial at the New York Red Bulls. So we didn't know it was a trial. We thought we were just going to go train with those guys for a couple of weeks. So there was a couple of moments here and there where we were, and I think once you start playing with other kids that are really good, and you realize that, or at least he realized he he could play with those guys, I think the more you start to see it like, okay, this seems like this is a possibility.
Were you betting on Evan's ceiling specifically, or this is really just regardless of outcome?
I kept seeing it like, I think I saw it as, if he was into this and he wanted this, I was going to support him. And my wife is the same way. We're very much like, if this is what you want, bud, then we're going to support it as long as this will go. Right. I mean, so I think that's really where this comes from, is just sort of listening to your kid, understanding what they want, and then allowing them to go as far with, with this as possible.
But Laurent makes many brilliant statements on this podcast, but at one point he said something that I think resonated with a lot of different people. And he was speaking specifically about his son, about Levi, that he's at a level at NYCFC as a goalkeeper, as a U14 player, where it's as high as of a level as you can play in this country, right? Aside from playing for one of the U.S. youth national teams. Mm-hmm. And at some point, let's hope there isn't, but there could be, there can be a letdown, right? Or there will be, there could be a letdown because there's not much else to go above, but you can drop. I'm curious how you approach that as a dad with Evan, and how, even if Evan thinks about that at all, and when you look into the future, what does that look like?
Well, this year there's been a series of letdowns, right? I mean, you're no longer one of the top kids, at least for Evan. I mean, there are kids on that team who are the top kids, and trying to figure out where you fit in that environment, especially when most of those kids are already hitting their growth spurts. And I know we talked a little bit about this ahead of time, but he's a smaller guy. He's like 5'3", maybe 95 pounds soaking wet. So he steps into an environment where he's always played on the wing, and he's a fast kid. And then you realize right away, when all these kids are now 5'8", 5'9", 130, 140 pounds, real strong physical kids, that he's not going to survive very long on the wing. He's just not going to. He's got good movement as a player. So I think getting on the inside started to make more sense. But yeah, I mean, a lot of games where you're not getting any playing time, or you're maybe getting a little bit of playing time, you're playing in different positions that you're not as familiar with. Like I said, a lot of very emotional times. The team recognized, like, hey, we want to get Evan on the field more. So they would have him play with the U13s. So he'd be playing down an age group. And
like a bio band, or not officially?
I don't know if it's officially a bio band, but there's just games throughout the year where they'd have him play with that age group. He's a later in the year birthday kid. He's an October kid. So I think that they just see it as, but for him, I mean, he's like, Dad, 3 years ago I was playing up an age group, and now I'm playing down. I mean, it's just like this, like, am I good? A lot of self-doubt that comes with that. And,
maybe they shouldn't call it playing down.
Well, that's just what the kids say. I don't know.
I know. I said maybe you should change the name.
But I get it. Like, if I see it as just, hey, let's get him an opportunity to play with kids that are maybe more like where he's at from a physical development standpoint, right? It doesn't, who cares what year you were born? So, but yeah, I mean, growth for me as a dad, and how do I talk to Evan? What kind of conversations do we have? And really the biggest thing that I've learned is that we don't really talk about soccer. When he gets in the car after practice in the beginning of the year, it was like, how'd it go? What did you think of the training? And he would just look at me like, and I started to learn that, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about fishing. Let's talk about other interests that he has that were just, and then when he was ready to talk about soccer, we would talk about soccer. And that really helped our relationship a lot.
Since you live with him now, and you said it was like a 1-bedroom apartment, do you talk about whose turn it is to do the dishes?
Yeah, so this has been wild, because this is kind of like college all over again, except for my roommate is my 13-year-old son. And yeah, I mean, it's actually, I think it's really helped him grow up as a kid. He was just cooking breakfast a little while ago. So, I mean, So he helps out with everything around here. I mean, it's not like there's a lot to clean. It's like 500 square feet, but but straightening it up and picking up after himself and doing the dishes and all that. Yeah. It's been cool.
By cooking, do you mean he took the box of cereal, spilled it all over the bowl, and then walked around the house with it and left crumbs everywhere, and then left the house?
This kid makes a mean omelet. Let me tell you. No,
What?
he's
Mine too.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I gotta get
Chef it
Lavita.
up.
I gotta get Lavita to hear this episode. I mean,
Yeah.
I was at, apropos, we're talking about, I was at a game yesterday. We had Evan Rosenthal from Manhattan Kickers talk about specifically about growth of kids, and some kids that went from his academy. One of the kids that was like a top kid at that club coming out into NYCFC definitely has not hit a growth spurt yet, while everybody around him has. And I saw him play yesterday, and I could tell that you could feel it's in the psyche of the kid. He just doesn't have the speed he used to or the strength. He's still as brilliant of a player, but the size is taking its toll. I was sitting on the side, and I was hanging out with the mom, who's incredibly supportive, but it's a dilemma where you go, well, how much do you trust the club to, as a parent, especially where you put in to kind of go with the kid on the ride, or you go, oh crap, they're going to lose their patience soon because this is not a long-term vision. Do you think about that?
Oh, of course. Yeah. My wife and I, what we've done, we kind of see this year as, first of all, how do I want to say this? We see this as just a overall life growth opportunity for Evan. And I think when we started to reframe this in our minds a little bit and stop thinking about this journey of like, whatever the heck this is, whatever this is, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
And we just reframed it, and we started thinking more in terms of him growing as a human being and as an individual. I think it really helped change our thought process on everything, because you can have these conversations where like, well, is this the best environment for him? Is his confidence taking a hit? Would he be better off somewhere else? And just sort of go round and round with all that. And I think it's just pointless. I really do. I think that us trying to project what's going to happen for a 13-year-old kid is insane. He's in a great environment right now, training wise. We love the coaches. We love Jose, the academy director. They're going to make the best decision for the academy, and then we'll just, whatever happens at the end of the year happens, right? If they see enough promise in Evan, and they believe that when he hits his growth spurt, he's going to be able to do something more, then great. And if they don't, that's great too. Evan will continue to grow as a kid, and that's just the way we approach it.
Great. It sounds so balanced.
I was going to say we should have him host the podcast for a few months.
You just found my replacement, bro.
No, I don't know. I was going to say it's my replacement.
You just found my replacement.
I've been listening to you guys.
We had the Red Bull director on a few weeks ago, Sean, who was great. Spent a bunch of time with us. And one of the things he talked about was it's really hard to create this sort of passion / intensity / kids who are coming from less, who see everything in this opportunity.
Yep.
And he said, we've got kids. He's like, it's hard for those kids who are, jumping out of Range Rovers and Tesla Cybertrucks to have that same sort of urgency, that same sort of passion. I'm curious. I mean, you guys have had the ability to make a move, get an additional apartment, split the family up, but I'm sure he's in an environment which looks very different than that.
Yeah.
Does he recognize it? How does it evolve? Or these kids, they're just out there and they're just playing,
I think so,
football basically, and having fun and pushing each other.
I think when you watch the sessions, what you guys do, I mean, Laurent, you see it at NYCFC. I mean, they're out there playing soccer, man. They're having fun. They're battling all the 1v1s and just pushing each other. And yeah, I do believe, and I understand that point, that if you come from nothing, you come from poverty, that you should theoretically be fighting a lot more for this, because you're seeing it as your only opportunity in life, right? And that's kind of what you're getting at, Matt.
Yeah.
And so how do you create that level of urgency and that level of fight? I don't know that you can. Some kids are going to have that in them, and I think that, but I can't replicate that.
Initially, when I wrote the script, I used the word sacrifice, but now that we're having a discussion, you've readjusted that word. Probably is not the right word in this sentence, but does Evan feel the pressure of the move that was made? Does he have like a context of
Yeah.
what has happened? And
Yeah.
can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So when we have some of those more emotional discussions about this journey and everything, and he does absolutely feel that pressure. We do the best we can to sort of relieve him of that pressure. And I think how we do that is by explaining that this wasn't us making this big sacrifice for him. I mean, this was a choice that we made as a family, and this is something that we wanted to do overall. And we don't add pressure onto him by saying like, look what we're doing for you or anything like that. Cause it's already a pressure cooker of an environment. So our job as parents is to kind of just pull back and relieve him of that pressure, I guess.
It's not just the physical movement. Matt and I joke about the podcast a little bit because we always think, like, does it cloud the perception of our kids that their dads have a soccer podcast? So there's all of a sudden their dads is like, their hobby is the kids' main interest. It's a very, something that Matt and I discuss a lot. You also, not just that you moved, not out the 1-bedroom story, you also have a freaking training facility. And so, and all of a sudden you're like Mr. Soccer.
Yeah.
And it is that you don't see a convert. Yeah. So does Evan feel that, do you think?
I suppose. I don't know. I guess we haven't really talked about that. I think he thinks it's pretty cool that we have this soccer. Of course, he can never go now because he's in Kissimmee all the time. But that's the other ironic part about all this is just like, not that was certainly not the goal of soccer HQ, but it was like sort of an ancillary benefit was that we'd have this facility and he could just kind of get in there and on rainy days like today and go train for a little while. And I mean, in the past 6 months, he's probably been there 5 times. Like we just never get an opportunity for him to go and train there. But as far as your question about added pressure, he knows that I'm all in on soccer now. He gets that I love it and that, I don't think he sees it that way at all, but maybe he does. I guess we'll find out in therapy, 20 years.
You can have him come on the podcast next week.
Yeah, exactly.
You had mentioned a bit about Soccer HQ and the problem you were trying to solve. Some of it weather inflicted, right? And the unpredictability, and then other challenges. What are some of the other challenges where you saw an opportunity?
Yeah, I don't know. Some are challenges and some are just opportunities. I thought, well, couldn't we just create an environment that wasn't about winning and losing, and it was just more about having fun with soccer, letting soccer kind of be the vehicle for development, whether it's, gross motor development or social emotional development, just whatever, like playing with friends and then obviously have some structure to it where you're learning this game. And so then I kept, my wife is a early childhood development expert. So we're constantly having these kind of conversations. And then we thought, well, gosh, if you could just create this environment where for each age group, you're kind of hitting these developmental milestones and the kids are falling in love with this game and having fun. And it's not about winning and losing. And that would be cool. And that's kind of how that started, I guess.
So it's not a supplemental environment.
I'd say the way to think about it is we see kids as young as 2 and then all the way up to 13. So it just depends on where they are in that process. For 2 to 7 years old, 2 to 8 years old, it's just kind of meeting them where they are, and then obviously once they get a little older and they're already playing club soccer, it is that. So if you're practicing a couple of days a week with your team, and maybe you're struggling with your confidence or taking whatever the situation may be, it doesn't matter. We create an environment where it's a safe environment where kids can really build their confidence and sort of start to understand technique and then turn that into skill that they can use on the playing field. So it's not, I mean, there's plenty of these like technical environments where it's like, you kids got to come here and we're the best. And, it's just, that's not what we are. I mean, we do have a lot of really, I'd say high level kids that are training there and that are growing and developing, but that's not who we are trying to be. We don't.
You do a lot of slow motion videos of kids dribbling around cones for social media?
No, we don't.
No?
We do a lot of videos of kids celebrating, scoring goals. Like just having fun, man. It's fun.
Great.
And I couldn't have done this without the couple of the people that I met early on, and because you can dream things and think of this would be cool and that's a good idea and have conversations with your wife and your friends, but But then it's like, okay, now I got to get people in here who really understand the game and who have shared values. And I started to reach out to a lot of the trainers in the area that I'd kind of worked with my kid, gauge their interest, see if they knew anybody who might be interested in something like this. And I reached out to is Leo Fernandez. He plays for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Of course, we know who Leo is in our area. Leo's like a local just soccer hero for all the kids. We went and grabbed coffee. And he's like, listen, man, I'm still playing for the Rowdies, but I love this idea. Leo's got a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. And he's like, man, I don't know how I can be involved or how I can help you. He's like, but I want this place to open because I want it for my kids. This just sounds so awesome. And so Leo was excited about it. And I was like, damn. So I was like, who else? And then I remembered Coach Brandon when Evan was 7, 8 years old. And I just loved Brandon, the way he was with the kids and his passion for the game of soccer. He was one of the first guys that kind of got me into the sport. I reached out to him and I told him my idea and he's like, oh my God, man, I want to be a part of this. I love this. So yeah, I guess that's kind of how that got going. And suddenly I'm looking for space and I don't know. And then it just sort of happened.
Just an amazing journey.
Are there, I mean, you're early in the process, but is there a vision to potentially build these out in other cities, whether in Florida or around the country?
It's funny that you asked that because I think in the beginning, the way I thought about it was, hey, if this works and people like it and there's demand, then it'd be cool to open another one in Tampa Bay and maybe another one, and just see where that goes. The little bit of research that I did told me that parents would be willing to drive about 20 minutes for something like this. And so we're seeing that, and we're like I said, we're growing and developing. We've been open for 7 months now, but what's been interesting is, so Leo did get involved with the business, and he and Brandon are the ones that built all the programs, and they wrote all the programs together. So Leo is our director of soccer development, and then Brandon's our director of coaching. And what's happened with that relationship with Leo is that he's kind of given us a little more exposure than I think we even anticipated. And so now I have guys who are, former pro players and different people that are reaching out to me going, I love what you're doing at Soccer HQ. I'd love to open one of these in Atlanta, or I'd love to open one of these in DC. And so I think there might be an opportunity for us right now to potentially open in different markets too. So
that's great.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. It probably won't happen in Queens anytime soon, but I get it. Maybe I'll move to Florida.
I'm curious. We had a guy on, Brando, who started something called Youth for Youth, which really focuses on college players and young professional players, actually. So it's like a near peer, and Laurent loves that term, type of thing, where they're mentoring these 13, 14, 15-year-olds. Have you guys thought about that as part of your curriculum? Even having like the 12-year-olds work with the 6-year-olds, for example, to bring some of that passion?
I think I think it's a fantastic idea. We've not had any, done anything like that, but it makes sense within our construct. And cause, you'll sometimes have a class of 5-year-olds butting up with a class of 11 and 12-year-olds. And, it's kind of neat for the little kids to see the older kids. So I could see how that could work. Yeah. It's a good idea.
Great.
I'll take that, Matt.
All right.
What's really depressing here in Justin's short time with the sport, he's already learned and done way more than I have in a lifetime of pretending. No, it's all right. It's fine. But what if you look at it now, like, what did you learn about youth soccer development that A, surprised you, and two, that it's just you're seeing that you say, okay, here's where I can do and help and fix, both in Evan's reality and of course in this new training facility that you've done?
Well, I think my perspective and is unique, right? Because I'm an outsider. I didn't grow up. I didn't play like at Matt's level as a college player. I didn't grow up in the culture of soccer like you did, Laurent. But what I get to be this kind of casual outsider, and I get to look at it all and just see it from a different perspective. And I mean, obviously it's a business, and so there's that piece to it. When I think about it, in the big picture, and why aren't we better at soccer nationally and all this? I think, the big thing that I realized is, like, there's this cultural component to soccer that it can't be ignored.
Mhm.
We have this great, I think it's actually a pretty good infrastructure. I mean, there's a lot of flaws with it, but this ability for kids to get pretty good training at a young age and then sort of progress as they get older and then be a part of these teams and play in these tournaments and have all these layers of team levels and all that. I think, there's things that could be better, but I think more than importantly, I think it's just this culture of soccer that we're kind of lacking. We have it in certain communities and in different areas, but Matt, I'm sure you can relate to this, but when we were kids and you wanted to go outside and play with your friends, everybody was playing football or basketball, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it was just hard to get out and get together with some friends to play soccer. And that was the other thing that we experienced with Evan when he was younger, is in the neighborhood, he just wanted to play soccer. I mean, of course he'll play some football, but he would just be so frustrated that his friends didn't want to play soccer. So I think if we can create more environments and more atmosphere where we're embracing the culture of soccer, then I think we can have more success. But I think like one of the things that's come from the Soccer HQ thing that I didn't really anticipate right away was just sort of the sense of community that we get, where kids from different clubs and different schools or whatever it is kind of come together and then can play.
And I think, you're touching on something that I think is important, and we've talked about this a bit too. And I think, I can't remember who put it in the right perspective for us, but MLS has been around for 30 years now, right?
Yeah.
Post the 1994 World Cup. And it takes a generation or two generations to become a soccer culture.
Yep.
So look at, I was also a basketball player in addition to soccer, but basketball was more of my passion because I could see and I could see these professional players and I idolized them. In soccer, I had none of that going back into the, I hate to say this, the 70s and the 80s, right? Even into the 90s for that matter, when we started finally being able to see professional games overseas. And if you, in your household, this will change when Evan becomes an adult and soccer is his love and his passion, and whether his kids choose that or not or whatever it may be, right? Yep. But it takes 30 years or 35 years to like get into this environment where, or this culture of loving the game and having the passion for it. And Evan's not going to have to choose a team with his son, like they will, or his kids, like they will have a team.
Absolutely.
So I think we're on the path. But this is not a snap your fingers and all of a sudden we're this like soccer, this soccer culture where everybody's infatuated with the game, but it's developing and it takes time.
It does. And I don't even know if, even with all that you just said, Matt, that we'll ever have like the same culture. I don't know how we could, because we still have football and basketball and all these other sports. So you just find your people along the way and then it sort of develops.
Yeah, and a half-assed podcast is not going to solve that problem. That's for sure. But we're trying.
So deprecating today.
Yeah, I know. It's, it's the morning, and I just look at it, Justin, and just admire everything he's done, and just really just a touching story. I just as we start to wrap up, I want to bring it back a little bit to Evan and your experience. Like, what would you hope that Evan takes away from this very unique experience that you've done with him?
That's a good question. Damn it. I mean, listen, I hope he's given an opportunity to come back next year. I hope that, and we will support that, because I'd love to see him kind of see it through a little bit more, and hopefully he grows a little bit physically. But, if he's not able to do that, I think that what he's been able to experience just from a training environment, being around really top level kids who all have that similar mindset of just playing at a high level and pushing themselves and kind of seeing where they can go. I think that there's something really valuable with that just for the rest of his life.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to me. And as much as people want to talk about development is about having patience.
Yeah.
Right. And it sounds like your mindset around it, and Evan's mindset, well, I'm sure he's frustrated. He's not growing as quickly as he would like. It's going to happen for him. And when it happens for him, he's going to, hopefully his confidence will catapult him into the next level, right? Where other kids who have been physically bigger, for more years, who haven't had to think or work different as they've had to work when you're not of that size, that all catches up. Right.
Yeah. I mean, he's 13 years old. And
Yeah.
there's kids on his team who have mustaches, and
Yeah.
Evan, Evan's a kid. He's
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
so I don't know. It all happens at different levels, and whatever. Just have fun playing soccer. I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like, I think sometimes we get a little caught up on the journey and the path and how all this is supposed to work, and but then we kind of remember, like, these kids are just playing soccer and they're having fun, and so I don't want him to lose sight of that this is a game, and just go have fun with your friends and your teammates.
What's your advice for a parent on Zillow right now for that's looking to relocate with their kid for a club?
I don't know. I don't think I have advice for that. I really don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair, it's fair enough.
Yeah.
That's I would make up something, but that's fine. Justin, tomorrow, Evan comes to you and says, "Pops," or however he calls you, "Sir," or whatever. He goes,
Well, not sir.
he goes, "I'm done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much."
I say, all right, let's go. What are we doing now? Like, what's the next thing? Like, I think that's kind of what's been the best thing about this experience here this year with Orlando City is, like, you grow as a parent. I'm growing with him, and what you realize is that this is my son, and he is going to start driving at this point his own interests and what he loves and what his passions are. So if Evan is no longer passionate about soccer or no longer wants to live this dream, then let's go do something else. What is it? Basketball? What, do you want to play the flute? All right, I'm all in. Let's go.
Start a conservatory, knowing you.
Something. I don't know. Whatever he wants to do.
HQ. Yeah.
But the important takeaway, right, is just find, it's like a combination of your passion and something you're really good at.
Yeah.
It's okay to follow your passion.
Yes.
But if you're not really good at it, it's tough to make a living doing it.
Or if you're not all in on it too, right?
And if you're not all in on it,
right,
then right. What's the investment all about?
Ultimately? Yeah. I don't know. Just let them be kids. Let them figure things out. Let them kind of find their path. I think in the beginning, I always say this. I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but I think when they're younger, you kind of push a little. Like you see there's interest, you see there's a talent, you sort of you nudge and you push in a direction and you encourage and all that. And then there comes a point when they hit adolescence where I think as parents, we still support them, but we kind of have to pull back a little bit, like, all right, let them drive. And I think that's what I'm learning. And, Evan is he's really driving now. He's driving and he's like, "Hey, Dad, I want to go train." All right, hop in the car, we grab his balls, whatever. And we go do what he wants to do. But just pulling back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, but Matt is right. As a parent too, you have to recognize, even if you're just new to the sport or whatever, you have to recognize that the kid is good at that specific thing they want to do. If you're going to, I think it's not just saying, okay, whatever you want to do, we can do. I think.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I think there's,
it's part of our job is to recognize.
There's levels to it.
Oh yeah.
Right? When they're 6 years old, do whatever they want. But when they're 13 years old, if the commitment, if the passion and quality doesn't align to the commitment, then that's a discussion, right?
100%. Yeah. There comes a point where you have to decide how much do we want to commit to this, and yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, this episode has been the most kind of parliament. The three dads. This was a big one. Well, what a story this is, and we wish you nothing but luck. I know we'll see each other again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
It was great,
man. It was great.
It's great talking to you guys.
Wishing you guys all the best of luck.
Wow. All this stuff this one amazing dad did that I probably would never dare do. Matt, incredible.
I think you need to give some credit to his mom and to his sister too.
It's true.
And to the kid.
And to Evan.
But Justin's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, man, that's true. But I did learn a lot. There's a moment in this episode that stayed with me. Justin says, let them be kids. Let them figure things out. Let them kind of find their path. And that's coming from someone who made a life-altering decision for his son.
Yeah, Justin also said something that every parent needs to hear. When they're younger, you kind of push a little. You see there's interest. You see there's talent. And then there comes a point. We just kind of have to pull back a little bit, let them drive. That's the tension. Push, then pull back. Support, then step aside.
And maybe the most powerful line in the whole conversation, if Evan is no longer passionate about soccer, then let's go. Let's go do something else. Man, that's a release valve if I ever had one or heard one. After relocation, the sacrifice, after the 1-bedroom story, he's still saying if the passion isn't there, we pivot.
Yeah, that is the real lesson. It's not how far you'll go, it's whether you're willing to stop.
Yeah, and if this episode resonated, you know what? Not if. I know this episode resonated with you guys. Send it to another parent in the middle of a big decision, because these aren't just soccer choices, these are family choices. Just like subscribing to this podcast.
And we're all just trying to get them right.
Yeah. You know what, Matt, what a pleasure. This is Chasing the Game, Youth Soccer in America.
Till next time.